Avtar Meher Baba ki jai. So you can get.
Jai Baba.
Is the screen visible? Yes, I think.
Yes, yes, screen is visible.
Yeah, you can get started.
Jai Baba. I
Yeah.
give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or to the performance of religious ceremonies and rites, but to the understanding of the following seven realities. The only real existence is that of the one and only God who is in the self in every finite self. The only real love is love for this infinity God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with the truth. The only real sacrifice is that in which, in pursuance of this love, all things, body, mind, position, welfare, and even life itself are sacrificed. The only renunciation is that which abandons, even in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. The only knowledge is the knowledge that God is the inner dweller in good people and in so called bad, in saint and in so called sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demand without expectation of reward. When compelled to take part in a dispute, to act without the slightest trace of enmity or hatred, to try to make others happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for each other, and to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, even those who harm you. The only real control is the discipline of the senses to abstain from indulgence in low desires, which alone ensures absolute purity of character. The only real surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstances, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, is resigned with perfect calm to the will of God. Jai Baba.
Avtar Meher Baba ki jai. So hope you guys had a good Saturday. And for those of you who went back to the chapter, and do you have any other insights on the last reading that we did? Else, we can go to the assignment that we're working on. So the chapter we just finished is Infinity of the Truth. So I think it was a very beautiful chapter that brought out some aspects of spirituality in general, and more about the idea of infinity in the spiritual realm. And I agree that from a sequence standpoint, it's one of those early chapters and good introductory chapters that we can um, throw at somebody who asks or who's trying to get initiated into spirituality, right? So, any thoughts on this chapter before we go ahead? No, good. So then let's just jump to the assignment. So just to summarize for those of you who were not there on that call. So we discussed in the previous chapter on love about backbiting. And one thing led to the other. We had a beautiful session by Ravi on backbiting. And then inspired by Namita, who volunteered to take a challenge to do backbiting. I mean, to watch out and not do backbiting for 21 days. so, uh, anyway, she did that, and then a few others as well joined. And the way we are good students in general, I'm sure many of us observed our behaviors in the last week, even if you didn't volunteer, on instances of backbiting that one goes through, right? So I also noticed yesterday, Ravi wanted to talk about it, and then I thought it might make sense to spend a few minutes discussing our experiences and trying to learn from the group think. So we can go in any sequence. Nomita, Ravi, whoever wants to go first.
Ravi should go first.
He's my
Okay,
senior.
Ravi, go ahead. Ravi, go ahead.
Thanks, Namita, for putting me into this and helping me to lead now. All right, that's great, Namita. You initiated,
So what's the
and
name of the guy, Ravi, just before you start? Paul, is it? Paul is finished or the person you mentioned?
Paul?
No, I don't know who it was, your colleague.
Yeah.
The target you
Oh,
mentioned.
Mark.
Mark, okay,
Oh,
yeah. So
yeah.
anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, I'll tell you my experiences. Thanks, Namita, for helping me to take up the task. 40 days. Our attempt is to not to backbite, and I tried. And I failed. While I was failing, before I even failed, I was able to predict I'm going to fail now. Okay. This was the situation. So we had a party last weekend. My daughter was my daughter is going to get married, and they had a shower, bridal shower for her. So about five of us, we went to a place. We sat down. We were eating, and somehow the calories what we are eating came up. And then one gentleman who is very intelligent, very smart, he said, "Oh, you can eat rice, no problem. The only problem is when you are boiling the rice, whatever you get it on the top, you take it out, you're going to take all the calories out. And then you can eat whatever you want. You don't have to worry about the calories." I thought, my God, what is he talking about? Then he started talking about chapati. You don't worry about the calories. You can eat all these things. I tried to mention very nicely, hey, on the top, whatever you get on the rice, those are the nutrients and those are the things what we need. If we eat that, that's enough. Compared to rice is nothing but carbohydrate. I tried him very nicely. He said, no, 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 those are, I mean, he can't. Then other people also tried to do something. Everybody kept quiet, and the gentleman left. The gentleman left.
Just anything.
Who is beeping?
Mix it
Some fire alarm going somewhere.
in our hotel.
Oh,
Sorry.
you don't know.
I'll
Oh,
put it on
Take
mute.
care, take care.
oh, okay.
Don't
So
ignore
It's
him.
a
even
phone,
while
not
that
a phone.
gentleman was, so even while that gentleman was leaving, I could see, oh, okay, I'm going to fail now. And then as soon as the gentleman left, the other people, they said, oh my God, what is he talking about? And then I didn't say anything, but I just said it didn't make sense what he said. And I felt I alienated him. I made a separation from him instead of feeling oneness. That itself is uh, the kind of definition for the backbiting, right? That is the thing. And the second instant was, oh, at work, and my boss was telling something not realistic, and then I had to talk to my other colleagues, and I had to talk whatever he said, but I did not speak in line with him, but out of line with him. That made me feel okay. If he were present here, I wouldn't be talking the same way. That is the feeling I got. Uh, so those are my two experiences. But good thing about it is I'm conscious. While I'm doing this, I'm conscious. I failed, and Baba said failures are part of the success. So that is my account. Jai Baba.
Jai
So
Baba.
how would you rate yourself? I mean, you did well, 50%, 50-50.
Oh, if I were not to take this vow, I would have completely blamed them, criticized them, blah, blah, blah. But now I did not do that. Maybe I should
Great,
say uh, 25% successful. Yeah.
great.
So, yeah.
No, I think more than that. You're being harsh on yourself. If it actually helped you minimize what your normal behavior would have been, or change what your normal behavior, that's a win, right? I see that as a good thing.
Yeah. Certainly, I was conscious was my feelings. Our main feeling should be if we should feel oneness with everybody. That is love, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that I did not feel, but maybe I don't know how to deal with this feeling oneness at the same time talk behind their back. I had to talk at work, but how do I talk? There's a learning thing. But I'm sure I'll pick up that. And not talking is also not good. I have to do my job. So talking at the same time, not alienating him. That should be the way. That should be the way.
Interesting.
Jai Baba.
Yeah, Baba.
Jai Baba.
If you're going in reverse chronology of age, who's next?
Me.
Okay, are you sure? I was just your
Your young energy I can't compete with. So yeah, it's me.
no. It's the other way around. I can't compete with your energy. Go ahead.
All right. So, I've been mindful of this backbiting thing for a very long time. So I told, within our family, my sisters, siblings, mom, and everyone. So they'll always gossip or talk about each other. So I told them, and I always used to think, when I get into this conversation, by the end of the conversation, I kind of don't like one or the other, it didn't leave me richer. So I was like, it's not a good thing to do. So then one day I told them, I said, listen, our Baba says that you can't listen to garbage, so I'm not going to listen. So, but you see, you can't clap with one hand, right? Because you still can't get it's for me the alienation is the other way around. So my mother would tell them, oh my God, these days I can't even talk to her because her Baba doesn't allow us to talk about anyone. So, so they thought it was some kind of a disease that I was not able to talk about people, and that was something new. And this was one challenge that the other person doesn't understand your perspective, why you are doing it, because it's not a norm not to talk about people and, add a few things here and there. So, it is practically a little bit challenging. So now then, when you meet friends or you meet relatives, um, they also if the depth of your relationship with the other person or your intellectual level or your exposure level is not same, there is nothing else you can discuss except people, because discussing people doesn't need a whole lot of intellect or knowledge, nothing. You just demean someone. That's very easy. So relationships which are shallow, it is hard to practice not doing backbiting. So this is the second challenge I feel. The third thing is, okay, you say I'm not going to backbite, but you are in a corner with someone whose whole existence depends on backbiting. She will puncture your head, you have nowhere to go. And by the end of the day, you think you've bathed in filth, because she'll backbite this. Even if you don't add to it, you are stuck in that situation because you have to be part of whatever is happening. So it just drains you. So if you don't participate actively by contributing your ideas or adding fuel about this person or the other people will put information in your head. That is also uneasy. So these are challenges which I face from people I interact with. But on my own, I am very mindful that I don't want to do it. And then and then you slip also. Suddenly you start making fun of people, and then you get into that abyss as per normal. Being mindful, I have been successful. Dealing with alienation and dealing with people who dump their garbage on you, I don't know how to deal with it. And on my side, slipping from
little fun to bigger things, I am rather a bit in control. But I don't think this exercise can be played in solitude. The people you're surrounded with have to be at the same mind space as you. They have to be on a spiritual path. They have to know that this is something bad. Because if you don't know this is bad, and if it is your way of life, and some people get validated, by putting other people down, and they say, hey, see, I did so much for this one. What is she doing? She's always nagging, blah, 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 blah. So it's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done. So it's a long process. I think 40 days is a good starting point. But if we discuss these challenges, perhaps we can come up with solutions. I do kind of bypass by humor. I'll deviate the topic, or I'll say something funny and then come out of it. That has been my path for not getting deeper into it. I'm still at the surface, but it helps me immensely. Another challenge is in relationships where gossip is the only exchange point. You can't talk because you don't know anything else.
Gossip is the
You don't.
only entertainment. Gossip is the only entertainment.
So then you're really stuck. You don't know what to say, and that you sit in a room and you're just talking to yourself. And then the people like people like us who are like in media, or we talk and stuff like that. If you don't gossip, you'll sound like gospel. You feel like you're teaching them how to live their life. Then you're on the pedestal. So it's quite a labyrinth. The main thing I feel is I am mindful of it. In my heart, I say, Baba, forgive me. When I get into this corner with some people who are talking bad continuously, they swear on people, they backbite. I keep on telling Baba, I say, Baba, I didn't hear it. Baba, sorry. Baba, sorry. In my head, I keep on repeating that. But in all practicality, it is not completely possible to escape it, either from external stimulation or the mindset of people you are dealing with. But I think by the end of this journey in this life, I could go more silent, because I was known to be very, very talkative. Because the best way of not gossiping is not talk. So you just there. But I don't know whether the effect of listening to people's gossip or backbiting is as how many demerit points. If you speak, does it have more negative points, or when you're listening? If listening is not in your power, then perhaps it will take some time. But if you speak, that can be controlled. That is in our hands, and I feel nice about it. I feel nice that I'm mindful. I feel nice that I have taken up this challenge, and I feel nice to know that people around me are all mentally challenged. Jai Baba. That's all from me, Karthik.
Meter, meter reading.
Beautiful.
What's the
Beautiful.
percentage? What do you give yourself?
I give myself 45.
45.
45%.
Great,
Yeah.
great, great, great. Very specific. So you must have thought through that number. Anyway, so that's good. Anybody else?
Yeah, Jai Baba,
Jai Baba Sandhuji. Go
Jai
ahead.
Baba, Jai Baba. See, generally I do not do too much of backbiting. I avoid generally, but being conscious of this challenge that we have taken, yes, it is very helpful. And whenever you intend to think or speak bad about others, it just you pull back actually from there. But other thing which also comes up as a responsibility as a Baba lover is also to divert attention of when somebody else is backbiting with you. That's another challenge that we must all take. Somebody like in office setting, somebody talking that he has not done that. I've been calling him to do this, but I don't know why he doesn't even pick up my calls. Those kinds of things do happen in offices, and people start criticizing others of not being supportive in the teamwork. And then these kind of instances I could divert, that maybe he's in some kind of personal problem, or let's try to get him in touch again, just try to divert and suppress that long, which can go a very long conversation of backbiting somebody on which you don't have any control. Just it's pure backbiting, nothing else actually. And close it within 5-10 seconds, rather than pulling it on for minutes together. So that's something that I'm trying to do now. So it also helps others not to backbite, and it also helps you in a sense that those people know that if you start backbiting of others with Sanjay, that he's not going to listen to this and try to divert the topic to something else. That's a learning for me. Jai Baba.
Awesome. Very good. And rating?
Rating
Generally.
difficult, maybe 50-55%.
Great. Good. Unfortunately, this morning we are all sounding like we are on a reality show, but I think it's worth it. But let's keep going. Anybody else?
Our reality now.
How about you, Karthik?
Can I come in?
Mohammed is saying something. Yeah, please go ahead. Sorry, we missed you in the age order. Nomita bypass. She jumped in.
No, why I jumped in is because I have some disturbance. I may not be on the line for some time. So before that, I thought I will put in a few words and then maybe attend to things at home in between.
Sure,
okay. Backbiting has been on the back of my mind for a long time, but I don't do that much. But in a conversation, the actual basis for backbiting, when you are alone, you don't backbite because you don't get a back to bite. But when you are in a group, that invariably, because of the say community pressure, there will be conversation which impinges on some personality or groups or things like that. So at that time, it becomes difficult when you are conscious of this fact to continue the conversation or modify it in such a way that it doesn't hurt anyone. So it's a difficult exercise because the conversation, your best thing is that you can do is you can keep yourself shut. So that becomes very obvious in the group that you are not, say, involving in conversation, or say you are acting as though you are something greater than others and all that. Those ideas, it will creep in. So to actually practice non-backbiting, it is very difficult. So only way I could say surmount it now and then was to back talk, not backbite. So wherein I used to divert the conversation into other aspects which are beneficial from another person, or which are not so hurting to that person. So like that, we need to deviate here and there. But in actually, when you are supposed to be in the office, or when you lead a group, or need to get things done on your table with your assistants and other things. So there, the issue of backbiting comes up. But to discipline, or to teach, or to coordinate, we may need to criticize somebody. We may need to say instruct somebody for modification or betterment. So at that time, we'll have to be very cautious how we put it across, or how we manage the conversation so that it doesn't hurt anybody on their back, but you get the things done through somebody else also. So like that, there are issues which comes up. So it is a learning process. So it is not a easy job that say next 6 weeks I can stop backbiting. So it doesn't happen that way, but it is a long gradual process. Maybe the spiritual path will guide us how to say. I feel becoming silent on occasions is the best solution for me. And actually, with this quarantine, backbiting has become very, very less because there is no back at all to bite. So, because I don't say converse over phone to backbite somebody. So, because of that, chances for backbiting are reduced because of this current situation. Jai Baba.
Okay, so you didn't take the challenge, so and I think your point is well taken. It's not a 40-day exercise, which is part of what I'm thinking as well.
Yeah.
So it's a continuous process.
Yes.
Anyway, anybody else who did the?
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so now we have been talking about backbiting in terms of your alienating people, or what is your intention behind, talking about people. On a more rudimentary level, let's say between your family and your friends, sometimes you hurt somebody or you're hurt by somebody, right? So under those circumstances, you often want to either talk to somebody about, you know, just because you want to talk, or you want to know how you have handled the situation, whether your reactions in that situation was correct, or you're taking advice that how you could handle the situation. Is that backbiting? Would you put it under
Is
the?
it is it with the person's knowledge, or I mean, so it sounds constructive. So if you can craft a example, then probably it will.
Well, I don't have any specific example in mind, but what happens all the time in the family, in close friends, knowingly or unknowingly, sometimes maybe your words, your deeds hurt somebody, which is very common.
So if it is in the open, then there is a different sanskaric exchange that happens. There's
I'm saying
nothing
talking
zero
to the,
there, but it's not backbiting, is what I feel.
I'm talking about talking to a third person about it.
So that's not backbiting.
That's not backbiting. Okay, thank you.
Would others agree? Would others agree?
I think it's backbiting because if you have
It's
issues
front
or if
biting.
I have issues, we must say it to that person and get it sorted. But if you take counsel and get vote bank from everyone else, which means you're validating your own position than the other person, he may have something else. So I consider it backbiting.
Okay.
नहीं
To
बेटा
clean
आप
up
उनको
and clean
डायरेक्टली
up
बोल
your
रहे हो तो
उनको डायरेक्टली बोलो, देखो भाई ऐसे तमीज से बात किया करो. तो
मुझे बोल रहे हैं आप
That
नहीं
can be a
उनके पास, अरे
confrontation.
देखो ना
Are you
इसने क्या
speaking
किया,
Tamil?
मैंने तो ऐसा नहीं किया था, क्योंकि आपका पर्सपेक्टिव आपका है, उसका भी तो पर्सपेक्टिव होगा ना. You think she
Namita, when
hurt
did
you?
you learn Tamil? When did you learn Tamil? You're speaking Tamil now.
Me?
Yeah.
How come?
I thought you were speaking Tamil now. Are you?
Yeah, I learned it yesterday.
Okay, good. Now I can understand. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
I feel any communication which is negative, spoken about a third person without his knowledge with other people, is backbiting. If you want to clean up yourself, you should go and say, hey, this is not the way to do things. Um, well, I didn't like it. And, then you can clean it up. You don't need to collect votes uh, for your position. So I would say that's backbiting.
So
I agree
actually,
with the distinction
it
you
is
made,
how
Namita.
we suppose we are narrating an incident with a third person. It is also how we narrate that incident, whether we narrate somebody what he did, or I narrate something what I felt. So I
Yeah,
think that is the difference.
yeah,
He
absolutely.
he I criticized somebody
Super.
on somebody's back. He shouted and he did this. but I can always say that the way he spoke to me, I didn't feel good, So it's is saying the same thing in a very different way.
Yeah.
And I can always express my feelings with others rather
Yeah.
than what actually somebody did. So I think that is a subtle difference here, what Somaji was saying.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah. Criticizing the person or narrating the incident. That's the difference.
Correct.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
facts is facts, but if you use adjectives in your own favor, that means you're backbiting. So
Would we do the same thing with our children, about our children?
yeah, we do. Everybody, husband, children. Oh my
Husband,
God, you
okay.
don't know my husband. Oh my
Oh,
God, he doesn't
absolutely,
say a word.
absolutely. My dad is an expert. He will criticize his own family. So I think it all depends on the family and depends on each person. For example, if you go to a human resources interview and the candidate is asked to give 5 references, in those 5 references, 3 people give good reference and the other 2 people give bad reference. Now, is that considered backbiting? No, I think it's a matter of
Hmm.
perspective.
Yeah.
I think backbiting is very clear. There is no confusion about it. I think where it becomes very gray, the gray area is that, like I said earlier, if there's a sexual predator and somebody new comes and that person has to know about that person, do we consider that as backbiting? No, that's a fact. So I think it has to do with the intention, motivation, and the context. So
Yeah.
backbiting is very clear. Like, if you're going to talk behind somebody and criticize that person, now there is a constructive criticism and there's also destructive criticisms. There are people who are jealous of somebody and they will backbite on that. So I think there are other variables involved on it. It's not, I think it's very situational. And I always believe that every situation is unique and every unique situation has a unique solution. Jai Baba.
And every human being is unique.
I want
Yeah.
to ask a question. Uh, at work, some people work and then they leave, and some people gave my reference when they apply for a job. When the employer calls me and asks me, I usually don't tell the truth, don't tell the whole truth. I try to be as diplomatic and does that consider as a backbiting? Not telling what the actual experience was, even though I was not happy with this person.
You are helping the person.
I think that's hypocrisy. I think.
Yeah, I think so
But
too.
I
Because
didn't
I
want to
think
ruin his job.
being Yeah, so but at that, in the interest of protecting his employment, you're doing a disservice to the employer. So I've been through this dilemma, and I have gone to the side of being factual and truthful, right? Even if it means the person will probably not make the cut because of that. I think that's a better thing to do, right?
I think you have to be detached. You have to not be
Yes.
personal about that person. You have to be, especially in a situation like Ravi said, if an employer is asking about an employee, we have to be very clear about the facts and give examples. What are the good points and what are not the good points if they want to know about it. So I think one has to be impersonal in a situation like this. Yeah, Baba.
So, I mean, that's the whole idea of the background verification or the reach out that they do, right? So, one of the questions that you typically get in that form is, why did you let him go? And will you hire him again? Being truthful on those two questions is very, very important because that helps the employer make a decision and maybe mars the opportunity or makes it tougher for the employee in some cases. But then I think that's the role that you're in. Like the Kama said, stay objective, and the role demands that you do it.
You
Right?
know,
And that's-
I had an intern who, we rate them and then they get whatever, the marks or scholarship. He wasn't talking with the mark, but he called me and he says, if you give me this many marks, they will pay for my.
Amrita, you're resounding. Can you speak into the computer?
Okay.
Something's wrong with your audio.
Now you're speaking English,
Sorry,
not Tamil.
I had
Thank you.
unmuted myself, so that was a mistake.
Okay.
Sorry.
So he
Oh, two
said,
voices. Okay, go ahead.
now this guy, he called me and he says, if you give me more marks, I'll get a scholarship. My parents can't pay. But he wasn't up to the mark. It was a big dilemma for me. But I
No.
didn't give him those marks because I mean he hadn't performed. His sob story wouldn't have, because he wouldn't have performed later as well. So I gave him, actually it took me few days to evaluate his case. But ultimately I thought it's better to be truthful to my own self than deviate from. I don't know whether it was backbiting, but I thought that was a correct thing to do, considering that my opinion mattered also for the institution which was grading them. So yeah, to do things correct is not backbiting. Uh, yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I agree with you. But what happened once is one guy did something, joined new, and he took an X-ray for a pregnant lady without checking the pregnancy. And I called the manager and I complained about him. Next thing I know was that guy was fired. I felt so bad for complaining, but I cannot stop complaining. How would a situation like this do we do? We don't want him to fire, but we want him to get a first warning and then do the job.
No, I think
Baba's will.
it's the same thing that
Baba's
you
will.
already. Yeah,
Anything
exactly.
could have happened. He could have been excused. So you don't have to feel guilty about it.
Maybe if you had
Yeah,
liked the
Baba's
guy, you
plan.
could have had a, maybe, no, it's not on Baba and all. Please, I think that if you had liked the guy, you would have said, "Hey, guy, I noticed that I observed that you didn't do this test. Is there a mistake or what is it like?" I mean, you probably know based on his track record what kind of an employee he is. But if you feel that this person definitely has a track record where he does mistakes like that, then I think what you did is fine. So I think it is a situational thing. Suppose you dislike the guy and you said, I have to screw this guy, then you're going to go tell the manager and say, like, hey, this is what happened. And this is what happens in many organizations, right? If somebody sees a mistake that has been done, and if you don't like the person, you're going to go backbite or tell about that person. But if you are friends with that person and you want to protect that person, you might also want to make sure that the organization is also helped and the person is helped. You have a talk with him and see whether how he responds. So
That
definitely we should
situation,
give a
Yeah,
chance.
Kama, that situation
Kamaji,
was
but
not
the
happening.
organizations,
Yeah.
organizations demand a certain kind of governance from people. You are expected to report. So,
Yes.
and that's in even in my organization, anything which is you don't find right, because you don't know the implications right on that day. Implications could be known a month later or 2 months later, and that time you feel guilty that probably you should have reported. So it's not very clear right at that point of time. So whether you
No,
follow
You
the
did the right
procedure or
thing, is
follow
what I
your heart,
think.
yeah,
No, definitely there is a compliance in everything,
yeah,
no doubt
yeah,
about it. But I think
yeah.
it has to be a very situational thing. Like if that pregnancy test is a very, very major thing, and this guy, it's like somebody leaving a scissor in the body, like after surgery. That's not a good thing. So I don't know. I'm not a medical expert, so probably it depends on the gravity of the situation. If something very small has happened, you can't fire a guy because of that, if it was a genuine mistake. But so I think it's a very situational thing, a contextual thing. Jai Baba.
Yeah, but I don't. I see. I either neither have liking or disliking for that person, but that person is supposed to take pregnancy test if he's taking an X-ray for a pregnant lady. Period. Because this X-ray might affect the baby. Depends upon what month of pregnancy she is in, and yeah, that is the situation. But anyway, let's proceed with the backbiting.
Yeah, I think we have got we have made quite some coverage here. By the way, I don't know if the screen people are looking at the screen. I was just making some random notes. You feel free to edit that as well. So I've grouped it into two things. What is the intent motivation for backbiting, and more on that when I talk about my experience, and then of course what are the actual notes and the net techniques that we can use. So I had a rough time. So I had a good first 2-3 days because I think Baba was good from a work standpoint. Everything was smooth and we didn't have issues. But I did one thing which I think helps. I did announcement publicly to all the people that I regularly deal with, saying I'm doing this, right? And that helps. That helps because so I had conversations where the counterpart started a line by saying, "Hey, I'm not backbiting." So I thought that was a win. Okay, so I think then I was thinking about I encountered a couple of instances where I was talking to people and I was able to stop early enough. I think Sanjay's point is very, 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 very relevant. I use that a lot of the time in group context. Divert, right? So divert and deflect the topic and take it away from that context. But I'll go to the meat of my problem. So all was fine, and I think literally in the last 24 hours, all hell broke loose. We were working with it's very personal, and I know this is going to get recorded, but I had a very close encounter with somebody which I needed to discuss with the other partner, right? So we were three of us, A, B, C. C did something, and A and B, that is, let's say I am A, so I and B had to talk about this at tech. So that was a struggle, right? So staying objective and staying focused on the larger good of the organization and the team, but being very critical and clear on what we need to achieve. And thankfully, I had disclosed to B on this backbiting, and he's a spiritual guy as well, so that helped. Okay, but still, I think encountering complex work relationship situations and staying the course is very tough. And I think context drives everything, right? A lot of it is contextual, and within context, the key point is what is the intent. So if you see intent, I was thinking hard about why do we backbite, right? And I think I go back to the first point Mama made last time. It's obviously very clear, right? Ego pandering. You just pander to your ego. The second motivation for us to backbite is actually strangely, and I'm sure some of you, more of you may relate with this as well, is when you have conversations which it's an easy agenda item to add in, right? It's titillation, right? You need something to talk about. So today you start a conversation with anybody, it's generally, hey, how's the corona scene on your side? So minus that, you need something to talk about, right? So you start by the titillating capability of talking about another person. And unfortunately, talking about another person is titillating. I can't think of any other word to describe that. So it acts as a very good way of engaging. It's a laugh, then you go deeper, and then it's an abyss, like Nomita said, right? So I think curbing that is much easier, because once you have the awareness that, hey, that's not really healthy from your personal spiritual growth standpoint, I think you will do better. So I think having said that, I also decided that I'm not going to time box this. So it's not a 40-day challenge anymore. I'm going to do this now. So let's work on it without any time boundaries, and keep learning from our experiences. And I think it's good to talk about this with such transparency and openness. And I think we have come a long way as a group if we are able to talk like this. Of course, as I said, it sounded a little like a reality show, but that's all right. Okay. So,
Very good, Karthik.
yeah.
Jai Baba,
Anything
I
else?
think, Jai Baba, I think we should do this 40 days because that will, I mean, if you leave it open-ended, then it loses its impact. In these 40 days, we would have at least from, I mean, in my case, 45 to maybe
आपका
I would
आवाज
leave to
ठीक से
60.
नहीं आ रहा है सिस्टर आपका आवाज नहीं आ रहा है ठीक से
Who
नहीं
is
आ
that?
अच्छा रुको
That's Pashmina, I think. Right?
Pashmina.
hello
yes that was me yeah I couldn't
Yes,
hear her
yes, yeah.
properly there was some
can you
noise
hear
Yeah,
me
yeah.
now?
Yes, better.
yes
So
we
what
can
I
hear
was
you
saying is it is better to time this exercise and stick to 40 days and then we see how it's going. Till then, it will become part of our system. And then, as we go along in life, we can make it a wider and a bigger circle, and it'll be easy for us to have backbiting completely eliminated from our systems. But if you leave it open ended, I agree it is not achievable in 40 days. But for example, we take up an engineering course. We can't say engineers have so much to learn, they can learn. It is a limited period course, like 3 years, 2 years. You learn the basic skills and then you can apply it in rest of your life. In my opinion, we should continue these 40 days and then see how it goes. Jai Baba.
Yeah.
Reason I'm
Good.
struggling with the 40-day thing is what happens on the 41st day? Pick
No,
up the
by
phone
then
and
it would have
backbite.
become an habit,
Start
and
backbiting.
you
that
would
is
have no
matter
friends
that
left,
is
so you cannot
matter of
backbite.
worry you know what happens in month of Ramzan you're fasting end of it on the Eid day you eat so much so on the 41st day that is what might happen
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So that was my problem with the 40 days, but I hear you, Namita. So
There's another
yeah, at
there's
least
another thing. In Japan, if you hate your boss or someone, you hate your husband, you write his name on a plate and then you break it on a wall. So during these 40 days, maybe we can do backbiting about each other in this group. At least with these 9 people, we can come clean.
somebody's
So,
having a
let
side
me
conversation.
see. I came up with a couple of comments here. One is, I think as Baba lovers, for sure we should stop talking just to have some entertainment about others, putting the other people down.
Yes.
Okay, that's number one, because that's not going to take us anywhere, because that's going to take away from Baba. So first we have to stop that. And then second point is, if we have to talk about other people, then we have to learn the technique. Who is that?
I muted him.
Okay. So we have to talk in such a way, we have to learn this technique of not putting them down, but talk very diplomatically, but at the same time convey the message, whatever we need to do. Those are the 2 points, takeaway points for me. I'm going to continue forever,
but what about the intention behind the diplomacy that is also going to matter.
Yes.
So we'll be mindful of that.
And then I
also felt
offer everything to Baba, saying, Baba, I'm trying to be honest, try to feel one with the other person. If you think I'm backbiting, I offer my weakness to you. That's what I'm going to say.
I was thinking, we all talked about backbiting so much, but every time we backbite, we really need to think about the intent behind it. What inspires backbiting? What is the motivation behind it? And if we don't analyze every single case of backbiting with the intent behind it and Baba's other teachings, the progress may not come. We may be just touching it on the surface. Let's not do it. Let's divert. Let's distract. And then we go back to the same ways later. So just my thinking, every single case we need to reflect on and understand what happened. And then the learning is deeper. Is my thinking.
I agree with you.
I usually, we didn't talk about this. It didn't come in any example, but I backbite when I'm angry. When I'm pissed with somebody, I'll go back and talk some rubbish about the person. Not so much because of ego. I don't know whether anger is related to ego. I need to think deeper. But just during that period when I'm angry, I may say things which are hurtful to the other person. So there are many, many motivations that force us to backbite, and we got to curb those motivations, I think.
So Sunilji, stop getting anger so you can kill two birds with one shot.
Yeah, exactly. I was
Backbiting
thinking about
and
that.
anger.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah. Thank you, Jai Baba.
That will be another.
All right. So I think this is good. So probably we'll do a rain check or we'll check back on the progress in a week or so, maybe in a couple of weeks, and then we'll see how people are doing. And I think we will try to make this a little asynchronous so that we save everybody's time. Why don't we just post our experiences? I was thinking of doing that. My bad. I should have done it. We should post our experiences as it happens, right? As you encounter these little things and as you do these little deeper thinking, like Sunil said, and you discover some insight about backbiting in your work day, in your family life, in your conversations, just reach out and put it out there, because the best advantage is also you don't forget it, right? So I think that's another thought, so that we work better as a group. With that, let's get to reading. So let me open up. Yep, the page number on the physical book is 123. The title is The Search for God. Grades of Belief in God. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Most persons do not even suspect the real existence of God, and naturally, they are not very keen about God. There are others who, through the influence of tradition, belong to some faith or another and acquire the belief in the existence of God from their surroundings. Their faith is just strong enough to keep them bound to certain rituals, ceremonies, or beliefs, and it rarely possesses that vitality which is necessary to bring about a radical change in one's entire attitude toward life. There are still others who are philosophically minded and have an inclination to believe in the existence of God, either because of their own speculations or because of the assertions of others. For them, God is at best an hypothesis or an intellectual ideal. Such lukewarm belief in itself can never be sufficient incentive for launching upon a serious search for God. Such persons do not know of God from personal knowledge, and for them, God is not an object of intense desire or endeavor. A true aspirant seeks direct knowledge of spiritual realities. A true aspirant is not content with knowledge of spiritual realities based on hearsay, nor is he satisfied with pure inferential knowledge. For him, the spiritual realities are not the object of idle thinking, and the acceptance or rejection of these realities is fraught with momentous implications for his inner life. Hence, he naturally insists upon direct knowledge about them. This may be illustrated from an occurrence in the life of a great sage. One day, he was discussing spiritual topics with a friend who was quite advanced upon the path. While they were engaged in this discussion, their attention was diverted to a dead body that was being carried past them. This is the end of the body, but not of the soul, the friend remarked. Have you seen the soul? Asked the sage. No, the friend answered. And the sage remained skeptical about the soul, for he insisted upon personal knowledge. Aspirant has open mind. Although the aspirant cannot be content with second-hand knowledge or mere guesses, he does not close his mind to the possibility that there could be spiritual realities that have not come within his experience. In other words, he's conscious of the limitations of his own individual experience and refrains from making it the measure of all possibilities. He has an open mind toward all things that are beyond the scope of his experience. While he does not accept them on hearsay, he also does not rush to deny them. The limitation of experience often tends to restrict the scope of imagination, and thus a person comes to believe that there are no realities other than those which may have come within the ken of his past experience. But usually, some incidents or happenings in his own life will cause him to break out of his dogmatic enclosure and become really open-minded. Another illustrated story. This stage of transition may also be illustrated by a story from the life of the same sage who happened to be a prince. Some days after the incident mentioned above, as he was riding on horseback, he came upon a pedestrian advancing toward him. Since the way of the horse was blocked by the presence of the pedestrian, the sage arrogantly ordered the man out of the way. The pedestrian refused, so the sage dismounted and the following conversation was held. "Who are you?" asked the pedestrian. "I am the prince," answered the sage. "But I do not know you to be the prince," said the pedestrian and continued, "I shall accept you as a prince only when I know you to be a prince and not otherwise." This encounter awakened the sage to the fact that God may exist even though he did not know him from personal experience. Just as he was actually a prince, also the pedestrian did not know it from his own personal experience. Now that his mind was open to the possible existence of God, he set himself to the task of deciding that question in earnest. Ordinary person indifferent to the existence of God. God either exists or does not exist. If he exists, the search for him is amply justified. And if he does not exist, there is nothing to lose by seeking him. However, man does not usually turn to a real search for God as a matter of voluntary and joyous enterprise. He has to be driven to the search by disillusionment with those worldly things that allure him and from which he cannot deflect his mind. The ordinary person is completely engrossed in his activities in the gross world. He lives through its manifold experiences of joys and sorrows without even suspecting the existence of the deeper reality. He tries as best as he can to have the pleasures of the senses and to avoid different kinds of suffering. Eat, drink, and be merry is the ordinary individual's philosophy. Occasions that provoke thought is the subtitle that I'm reading. But in spite of his unceasing search for pleasure, he cannot altogether avoid suffering. And even when he succeeds in having pleasures of the senses, he is often satiated by them. While he thus goes through the daily round of varied experiences, there often arises some occasion when he begins to ask himself, what is the point of all this? Such a thought may arise from some untoward happening for which the person is not mentally prepared. It may be the frustration of some confident expectation, or it may be an important change in his situation demanding radical readjustment and the giving up of established ways of thought and conduct. Usually, such an occasion arises from the frustration of some deep craving. If a deep craving happens to meet an impasse, so that there is not the slightest chance of it ever being fulfilled, the psyche receives such a shock that it can no longer accept the type of life that may have been accepted hitherto without question.
I think let's have some discussion here.
Sure.
So if you go above, The true aspirant seeks direct knowledge of spiritual realities. If you go to the top,
Yeah.
for him, the spiritual realities are not the object of ideal thinking, and the acceptance or rejection of these realities is fraught with momentous implications for his inner life. What does it mean?
Where is that line? Sorry, I'm struggling to find
The
it.
true aspirant seeks the direct knowledge of the spiritual realities.
Yeah, in this paragraph, yeah.
The second sentence. For him,
for him, the spiritual realities are not the object of idle thinking, and the acceptance or rejection of these realities have got momentous implications for his inner life. Yeah, so
I believe that what this particular paragraph is saying, that a true aspirant, because the word true aspirant is somebody who's sincere, somebody who's dedicated. It's not just superficial. Just like a lot of in humanity, we see people are superficially religious because either through conditioning, either through peer pressure, either through blind faith, and so on. So I think what it says here, that a true aspirant is not just content with knowledge, with theory of spiritual realities, or based on what others say, or also based on inferential knowledge, that is reading all the different books. For him, the spiritual realities are not the object of idle thinking. So this is again, I think, in in one of the chapters in Discourses, Baba says, it's not about theory, it's about actual practice. So the acceptance or rejection of these realities is fraught with momentous implications for his inner life. So hence he naturally insists upon direct knowledge about them. So the whole idea is that, again, Buddha, I think an example is Buddha. Buddha said that, okay, I am self-realized and I'm teaching you so-called Vipassana meditation or whatever, but don't believe me. Whatever I'm telling you, you have to practice and experience. Just like if somebody has not tasted sugarcane juice, and just because an authority tells him, hey, sugarcane juice is sweet, you have to accept it, you should not accept it. So the direct knowledge is actual, experiential, practical understanding. That is, you have to experience it rather than just have a theoretical intellectual knowledge. That's my understanding. Jai Baba.
Thank you, Kama.
Does that help, Ravi?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So even God realization also has to be experienced. Until then, we have to be patient and to wait for that moment.
No, fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah. So because it's like the prince, right? So you're never going to be reaching that point, right? So but that doesn't change the fact that God is real. So fake it till you make it. So you can't hold back your progress for that personal experience. For seventh plane hone tak, keep assuming that all the stuff is going to get there. You're going to get it.
Yeah.
Right? Walk like a saint.
So I should start wearing saffron robes from tomorrow.
Jai Baba, but there is one line here which is a very important statement here in the paragraph on page 125. However, man does not usually turn to a real search for God as a matter of voluntary and joyous enterprise. He has to be driven to this search by disillusionment with those worldly things that allure him and from which he cannot deflect his mind. So I think this again, life of Buddha, where he had a very protected life, right? Because the astrologer, according to mythology, that he said either you'll become a great saint or a great king. So the king made sure that he was in a controlled environment where Buddha was not able to see any old person, nor a sick person, nor anybody who had dropped their body. So he was always surrounded by young, healthy people. So even with human beings, we know that when we have encountered different people in our day to day life, and we were talking about spirituality, not everyone is interested in spirituality, to be very frank with you. Because when things are going hunky dory, when things are going fine, why do you need to think about God realization and self realization? Personally, I feel that I had to go through so called physical and mental suffering, what we call as apparent suffering, to really start asking the fundamental questions in life. What is the real question of why am I here? Who am I? So I think that happens only when an individual goes through so-called physical and mental suffering in their day-to-day life. Or if your prarabdha karma is good, then somebody like Ramana Maharshi just left home at 16 and went and got enlightened. So that's a very different kind of story. But for normal human beings, to become spiritual, really to become a true aspirant, one needs to go through so-called apparent suffering. Jai Baba.
Perfect, Kamaji. And it could have been in the past lives also. So it need not be in the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I
Yes.
agree with
Yes. Yeah.
Great. So I'll read for another few minutes, but I think I'll save some time for Pashmina as well. So I'll take the next subtitle. Unharnessed power of desperateness is destructive. Under such circumstances, a person may be driven to utter desperation, and if the tremendous power generated by this disturbance of the psyche remains uncontrolled and undirected, it may even lead to serious mental derangement or attempts to commit suicide. Such a catastrophe overcomes those in whom desperateness is allied with thoughtlessness, for they allow impulse to have free and full sway. The unharnessed power of desperateness can only work destruction. The desperateness of a thoughtful person under similar circumstances is altogether different in results because the energy it releases is intelligently harnessed and directed towards a purpose. In the moment of such divine desperateness, a person makes the important decision to discover and realize the aim of life. There thus comes into existence a true search for lasting values. Henceforth, the burning query that refuses to be silenced is, what does it all lead to? Divine desperateness, the beginning of spiritual awakening. When the mental energy of an individual is thus centered upon discovering the goal of life, he uses the power of desperateness creatively. He can no longer be content with the fleeting things of this life, and he is thoroughly skeptical about the ordinary values he had so far accepted without doubt. His only desire is to find the truth at any cost, and he does not rest satisfied with anything short of the truth. Divine desperateness is the beginning of spiritual awakening because it gives rise to the aspirant for God realization. In the moment of divine desperateness, when everything seems to give way, the person decides to take any risk to ascertain what of significance to his life lies behind the veil. God or nothing. All the usual solaces have failed him, but at the same time, his inner voice refuses to reconcile itself completely with the position that life is devoid of all meaning. If he does not possess some hidden reality he has not hitherto known, then there is nothing at all worth living for. For him, there are only two alternatives. Either there is a hidden spiritual reality, which prophets have described as God, or everything is meaningless. The second alternative is utterly unacceptable to the whole of man's personality, so he must try the first alternative. Thus, the individual turns to God, when he is at bay in worldly affairs. Re-evaluation of experiences in the light of posited reality. Now, since there is no direct access to this hidden reality that he posits, he inspects his usual experiences for possible avenues leading to a significant beyond. Thus, he goes back to his usual experiences with the purpose of gathering some light on the path. This involves looking at everything from a new angle and entails a reinterpretation of each experience. He now not only has experience, but tries to fathom its spiritual significance. He's not merely concerned with he's not merely concerned with what it is, but with what it means in the march towards this hidden goal of existence. All this careful re-evaluation of experience results in his gaining an insight that could not come to him before he began his new search. Re-evaluation of an experience amounts to a new bit of wisdom, and each addition to spiritual wisdom necessarily brings about a modification of one's general attitude toward life. So, the purely intellectual search for God or the hidden spiritual reality has its reverberations in the practical life of a person. His life now becomes a real experiment with perceived spiritual values.
Karthik, if I may just intervene, I think the last paragraph is probably one of the practical to do for the whenever we encounter maybe backbiting or any challenges or any dilemmas. I think this line, if you can just I'll just read it. If you he now not only has experience but to fathom its spiritual significance. Before that, this involves looking at everything from a new angle and entails a reinterpretation of each experience. I think this is an answer to our how do we behave, how do we act, and being mindful. I think mindfulness is what I think this means.
Very good point. You start looking through a new lens and start being very critical and analytical about what all that has happened with the positive reality that you have. Yeah. Good point. Okay. I'll continue. How big? Oh, it's the chapter is over. Okay. Finding God is coming to one's self. The more he carries on this intelligent and purposive experimentation with his own life, the deeper becomes his comprehension of the true meaning of life. Until finally he discovers that as he is undergoing a complete transformation of his being, he is arriving at a true perception of the real significance of life as it is. With a clear and tranquil vision of the real nature and worth of life, he realizes that God, whom he has been so desperately seeking, is no stranger nor hidden and foreign entity. He is reality itself and not a hypothesis. He is reality seen with undimmed vision, that very reality of which he is a part and in which he has had his entire being and with which he is in fact identical. I'll read that line again. He is reality seen with undimmed vision, that very reality of which he is a part and in which he has had his entire being and with which he is in fact identical. Beautiful line. Thus, though he begins by seeking something utterly new, he really arrives at a new understanding of something ancient. The spiritual journey does not consist in arriving at a new destination where a person gains what he did not have or becomes what he was not. It consists in the dissipation of his ignorance concerning himself and life and the gradual growth of that understanding which begins with spiritual awakening. The finding of God is a coming to one's own self. Jai Baba. I can't help but be reminded of the lover and the beloved message that Kama keeps talking about. I think that's it goes back to that. Yeah. So if you look at it, this chapter is classified as yeah. Any thoughts on the chapter?
Yeah, Karthik, I want to add that OILS, our innermost loving selves, which Kama has reminded us time and again. So going back to our inner self, the God is within you. So that's a pretty,
Correct.
I think you can internalize that. It's difficult, but we can.
Sure.
Jai Baba, I think that, I think in the second last paragraph, the word reality is mentioned, quite succinctly. His reality seen with undimmed vision. His reality itself and not a hypothesis. He means what? God. God is Baba. God, Baba in human form, right? I mean, avatar in human form. God is avatar in human form. That is Baba. And Baba is also a drop soul like us, who won the first lottery of self realization. And I think this also relates to the seven realities, all those seven realities that we know about. And in God Speaks, this reality is also phrased as IER, infinite eternal reality. It keeps coming repeatedly, infinite eternal reality. We read about the spiritual infinity of the truth, where we know about infinity now. What does it mean? What does it really mean about spiritual infinity? Eternity is something we know, which is existence, which is eternal. And reality is what we have understood from the seven realities. And also, this is talking about the individual self, the drop soul self, that is talking to each one of us, that there is nothing to discover from outside. It's already within us. The treasure hunt is within us. And I'm again going to repeat that 338 page, the game of hide and seek. The actors are so engrossed in their respective roles that they treat them as the be all and end all of all existence. For the major part of their continued lives, running into innumerable incarnations, they are unconscious of the closely guarded truth that the author of the drama, in his imaginative production, himself became all the actors and played the game of hide and seek in order to come into full and conscious possession of his own creative infinity. So, infinity has to go through the illusion of finitehood. So, here, infinity, we can put the word reality. Reality has to go through the illusion of finitehood to know itself as reality or infinity. And the author is infinite unconsciousness, correct? The state 2A has to play the parts of all of the actors, which is the drop souls, to know himself as the author of this greatest detective story worked out through the cycles of creation. So himself as the author is the eternal avataric infinite consciousness, basically. So in the end, I think we all need to be cognizant of the fact that we need to transcend from Baba, the personal form of God, to Baba, the impersonal form, which is our own self. So that is what that is a takeaway for me in this chapter, especially the last line, which says it is discovering your own self, which is Baba, pure consciousness. Jai Baba.
Oils. Jai Baba. Okay, so we have a few minutes, which the Pashmina ji requested. She has something to talk about and seek our inputs on. So over to you.
Yes. Just it was a very profound experience. So I just might get into tears. What happened is that few days back I was writing a check payment, and when I wrote the date 2021, all of a sudden I realized that it's been 21 years. And actually 21 years of my life has just kind of disappeared from my reality, my own personal reality. And somehow I felt that those years have disappeared from my life, not wasted. I'm not talking about wasting. So I said, ये 21 साल में क्या हुआ? I cannot figure out. If you ask me a question about any year, I will tell you out of memory in a way that yes, this happened. But there is no attachment in this 21 years that anything happened. Those years just kind of collapsed from my life, and I'm just awakened now. जैसे 2000 में मैं सो गई और 21 में जगी. इन बिटवीन का कोई चीज मेरी अपनी पर्सनल रियलिटी से कनेक्टेड नहीं है. All the land, Soda, and a lot of business transaction, yes, they are my reality, but I speak about it without me being there, like talking about Nehru Chacha. So I don't know what that feeling is. And for last 3-4 years, 3-4 days, I'm just wondering what's happening. So Kama or somebody else who could just kind of explain what's happening.
I'll wait for others to give their inputs. Jai Baba.
I think you have started living in the present suddenly. So that is a realization that you need to give up all the things and also not think of what is in store with the background of what you have lived all through. So we always do this. We think of the past, and also on the basis of our experience of the past, we think of what may be our future. So that is the usual mental work. So you have just come out of that, and then you have started living in the present. Should be a great moment for you, I think. That's how I look at it.
Yes.
Hey, Baba.
It just disappeared like those years from my personal reality.
Great. Any others? I think, yeah. Kama?
Jai Baba, I think that what Doc Mama said is very correct. I think that there are different ways of looking at it. First of all, it's related to our body, space time. Space time is only in the waking state. So if you take into consideration your material body, then it seems, hey, 21 years have gone. I have gone through physiological, psychological, and psychosomatic changes. Now, what happens is we have a memory of it. And the memory is based on all the different experiences we had, good, bad, or ugly. Okay. And then we have created certain sanskaric impressions. But in a way, on a positive way, if you're looking at it, this is all like a dream. You have acted in a movie. Those 21 years, I call it like, I have this numbers game, number 84 divided by 4 is 21 each. Okay. And I think the first thought that came to me about the number 21 was, I'm a gambler. I used to go to casinos and play blackjack. Okay. And so you have won the blackjack, like 21, as Doc Mama said. It's great. You're like going to live in the moment. You're living in the moment. So what happened to you is good. All those things, the memory, it's just an illusion. It's a dream. It's a divine dream that you went through. Because you are God in man state. The drop soul is also God in man state with sanskaras. That's it. So I think that it's a very good positive thing. It's just the mind is making you think like that. Oh my God, what happened? Why am I not feeling that way or something like that? So I think it's all about Manonash. Look at it from the opposite point of view, that it's because of the mind I'm feeling like this, because mind is always wants you to take through entropy, disorder, spiritual entropy. That is the nature of the mind, So nothing wrong with it, but that is why
I know it is a very good state. because I've been
Yes.
very blissful, and events, when I get phone calls, the events of the past come in my mind, but I don't feel the feeling of those events. I can write about those events. If somebody asks me about my daughter's marriage, I will be able to write, but I don't feel the pain or goodness about the event. So
So
I
you
am
have
in a
this
very blissful
non-duality.
state. Blissful
Right.
state, of course.
Good.
Yeah.
A heightened sense of detachment, very positive.
Yeah, if I
Okay.
can just add, I think it's a state of equipoise, because if you can forget your past, because past is history,
Hmm.
it's a state of equipoise, and if you don't worry about the future, so I think this is a
I would like to ask, in the beginning, you said that it's very profound.
Yeah.
Why is it profound? And
Uh,
also, you said you would tear. Why would you tear? Those probably would answer where the feeling is
yeah.
going.
No. The thing is that I have not shared this with anyone. It's been just going on since last 2-3 days,
I
and
see.
I've been wanting to call Kama and talk, but somehow I didn't feel. I thought I will discuss with everybody. Earlier there would be urgency of talking about things. Now
Right.
there is no urgency, and I'm doing my work, my daily work, and whatever I'm supposed to be doing, I'm doing it. In fact, I think I'm doing it very brilliantly. Stuff that I do.
Great. Yeah. So that it means it's not as profound as you might think. And the tears part, why would you tear thinking of that?
No, no, not tears of the past. Tears of uh, I don't know.
Joy?
It's
Is
profoundness,
it joy
joy,
or sorrow? It depends on
awakening. No, joy, tear
joy.
of joy, and
Okay, then
sharing
it's
for the
happy
first time with
situation.
somebody,
Perfect. Then you're exactly on the track,
sharing
Kama,
with the
and
group that will understand.
Mamaji said, yeah, great.
Mm.
Equipoise. Thank you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Stay where you are and keep going.
Yes, enjoy the bliss you are in now.
Enjoy. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
If
That's
you are in
true.
the fourth plane, remember that you may get some more powers, but be careful.
Yeah. I know about the siddhis and not to get attached to them.
I just, no, I
Yes.
mean,
Yes. No, it's good. It's a good reminder, in fact.
Yeah, I mean, jokes apart, I think it's a good spot you're in. If you can persist and continue this, nothing like it. It's the grace of the master is there. So I think
Absolutely.
it's great. It's great.
Right.
Anybody else? Hey, come on! Don't be so envious. Come in and say something.
No
like
backbite, no backbiting. Bite in the front itself.
yes, and about the past, present, and future, I just can put a lighter vein. So past is history. It's like a cancelled check. You wrote a check, right? So past is a cancelled check, and future is mystery.
Yeah.
So just don't worry
Jai
about
Baba. Jai Baba, who did you write
Yeah.
the check to?
Oh, acha. It was just for my insurance of the car.
अच्छा ठीक है फिर अगली चेक हमारे नाम काटना सब
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल
उसमें पूरा डिटैचमेंट पता चल जाएगा दैट विल बी योर लिटमस टेस्ट
सही बात है
ठीक है ना और हम लोग ना एक्सेप्ट करें दैट विल बी आवर लिटमस टेस्ट
हाँ
No,
yeah
you
that
can
is
try.
दोनों
You
तरफ आंसू
can
ही
not
आंसू
accept.
आएंगे हाँ
we will try collective living
हाँ
हाँ
I think there are 2-3 tests. First is आप check लिखोगे.
keen on coming to गुजरात आप महारानी है हम भी देखें आप लोग कैसे रहते हैं
No, definitely you must come to Gujarat. नहीं महारानी तो नहीं हूँ, but yeah, we do have a palace. It belongs to my brother, not me. But definitely everybody is welcome.
थोड़ी सिफारिश कर लो वो हमको आने देंगे.
Which city is this?
It's near Bharuch, between Surat and Bharuch.
Oh,
near Baroda, Bharuch and Baroda.
Nice.
So, हाँ.
you know, these experiences of being in Baba's fold is everyday affair, you know,
Yes,
for
it is
people
every
who
day.
have it. तो मेरे मन में हमेशा ये गाना बजता रहता है when I have that aha moment like 100 times a day. मेरा
हाँ हाँ
आपकी कृपा से सब काम हो रहा है, करते हो तुम तो बाबा मेरा नाम हो रहा है. So it's all attributed to him, and
yes
the
yeah
tears and joys and everything are him, and he's
yes
shining that beautiful him through us, and we are so
Mhm,
blessed.
mhm.
That's what I feel.
Yeah,
जय बाबा.
Jai Baba.
अरे किसी ने ताली नहीं बजाई, मैंने इतना अच्छा गाना गाया.
Yes, yes,
अरे
yes.
यार बजा रहे थे सब, म्यूट में था माइक्स.
म्यूट पे
चलो
ताली
ठीक
बजा
है,
रहे हैं.
क्योंकि ऑडियंस भी तो चाहिए होती है ना.
बिल्कुल होती है.
जरूर जरूर.
All right, that's all from me.
So
So,
Ravi, you just don't understand Hindi, is it?
I thought you guys are talking Tamil. No?
How come you don't
No.
even understand Tamil?
No, I thought it's Tamil. No, I
Why, as if
speak.
you come
No,
from
I can
West Bengal.
understand. I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Kama, whenever you're free, will you send me the 7 planes of existence, whatever that is, to me on WhatsApp or something, so that I just little understand more?
It's there on the last
Yeah,
page.
sure.
Who is this? Who is this? Kamakoti, I like your hairstyle.
Wow. I want
Today,
to see it again.
Who did,
today,
whom did you go
By
to get
mistake, I'm sure. Come
to get
Oh
on.
my
Kama
the
doesn't
God.
hairstyle?
switch on the
This
camera.
is so chic.
Is that you, Kama, who expounds all the discourses?
Kama in the hills. Oh, you're sitting in the terrace.
Yeah.
Sitting on the terrace, Kama?
today,
You know, I used to wonder when will I get as wise as Mr. Kama. Now I know I have to have this kind of hair to go there.
Hey, he's not
today,
listening to us, I
today,
think.
yeah, today is the
Nomita
day Baba
ji,
gave the divine theme. Yeah.
hello.
Oh, okay.
Divine theme.
Yeah, Mamaji, go
Divine
ahead.
theme chart was given to us.
Nomita ji can close the session with Bujave singing. Then we will clap.
Bujabe?
Yeah. Okay, but I don't remember
Beautiful
it. Why
idea.
can't I remember it? Bujave.
No, I'll
Do you
bring
have
it up on screen.
Ah,
if you
yeah,
want.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll bring it up on screen.
ये कर खुदा रात में परम
तू चलागी
Lagi,
आस
आस
होने की बातें नूरे ईमान तू आया
शाद मेहर
मेरे
बाबा
चरण
चरण
पर तू
तू नजरिए
सर
दान
दाना increase
जात दीवा के
बते मेहरबान
बाहू तुझे माली हकीकत
हकीकत
तनु तू आशे
बीने
बीने
आरे
भी तुझे
तुझे
दरी
दरी याए वहदत मारफत
फतनु
कोई तूफान तू हमो रहे राव ने ऐसा ले बकाशे ज्ञान इज़्ज़त नो कि तू पर मात्मा
नीचे
नीचने तारीर तू उदाना
प्रेमनो प्यानो पिलावे मस्त
हमने कर तुझ पर जान सदके साकिया पीर पैमा तू हमारी नाव भर दरिए तरा तो हमें करिए हमारा ना खुदा ए मेहरबान छेने गे बातू बुझावे नार जहलत नी कर खुद रत्न परमातु जलागी आश भक्तों ने की बख्शे नूरे मातु अवतार मेहरबान जय।
हाँ बच्चे लोग तालियां बजाओ।
It was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Beautiful,
much.
Navita. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It set up the tone.
That was really from the heart. Really from the heart. Nice.
Thank you very much.
Beautiful.
Jai Baba.
Beautiful.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
So,
Yeah, Baba.
on that high note,
Say, Karthik, next week we should start about worry. Not to
Yeah.
worry.
yeah, should.
I think we should start
Forgot
next.
that completely. Yeah,
Yeah.
do that.
We will
yes.
bring it up next week.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay,
By
On
the
that high
time,
note,
by the time we finish everything, we will be over all our, worry, all those things that are bothering our growth. We'll come clean.
Yes.
True.
we'll all be in the palace state.
It's so nice, how knowledge we are trying to imbibe in our daily lives. That's so beautiful. It feels so nice.
What is
Jai
feeling
Baba,
nice? The
everyone.
ego or
No, it feels nice that all the knowledge we gain through Baba's words, we are trying to incorporate some of
being
it in
put
our
in
lives.
practice?
Yeah, so
Oh,
putting it in practice feels good, you feel that at least you're doing
Absolutely.
something about it.
Absolutely.
So Sunil and
The new
Namita ji, you are here or in Pune only?
No, we are in Singapore now. We are in quarantine. Another 21 days.
Oh God.
Oh my
21
now.
days.
19 days.
2 दिन हो गए।
19 more, I guess.
मुझे नहीं लगता कोई हस्बैंड वाइफ इतना इकट्ठे रहेंगे।
Don't I have been. बहुत मुश्किल. You can't even get out to. I mean, you can't go to the restaurant. Nothing, right?
We can't
leave the door.
We can't
Oh
open
my
the door.
So they just serve the food at the door and that's it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
Do
this
they
is
serve
even
any
after
beer?
you've tested
Yeah, we have tested negative. We have both our vaccinations done, but we cannot escape 21 days. And nothing from our room can leave. Nothing.
Oh my God.
It's very strict. They call us 4 times. They do video calls. They look at the phone whether we are in the same room.